Prague, 1836. In a small apartment in the city's Jewish ghetto, a child was born who would, decades later, permanently change the way humanity thinks about chess. His name was Wilhelm Steinitz. Born into a humble family with 14 siblings and scarce resources, Steinitz grew up in an environment where survival demanded discipline, adaptation, and intelligence. There was no room for waste, not of money, not of energy, not of thought. This upbringing would shape, in ways he might not yet understand as a child, the kind of player and thinker he would become. At the age of 18, he was sent to Vienna to study mathematics at the Polytechnic Institute. The imperial city was then one of Europe's most vibrant cultural centers, a place where ideas circulated as freely as polkas echoed through aristocratic salons. It was in Vienna that Steinitz discovered chess, not as a passing curiosity, but as an obsession that would consume the rest of his life. In Viennese cafes, chess was taken seriously. Local masters gathered daily to play, debate openings, and test their strength. It was in this competitive environment that the young Steinitz quickly stood out. His mathematical mind perceived patterns others missed. His patience, forged by years of austere living, allowed him to wait calmly for the right moment. In 1862, at the age of 26, Steinitz participated in his first major international tournament in London, finishing in a position that drew the attention of the entire European chess world. At the time, chess was dominated by what became known as the Romantic School, a philosophy built on immediate attacks, spectacular sacrifices, and dazzling combinations meant to enchant spectators. Its heroes were figures like Adolf Anderssen, whose immortal games were admired as works of art rather than models of logic. The goal was not simply to win, it was to win beautifully. Steinitz, in the early years of his career, played within this tradition. He produced brilliant combinations, attacked fiercely, and delighted audiences. In 1866, he defeated Anderssen himself in a direct match, establishing himself as the strongest player in the world. But something within him had already begun to question. The doubt was uncomfortable and persistent. If romantic chess was truly superior, why did his most consistent victories come from solid, balanced games, where he simply accumulated small advantages and waited for his opponent to err? Why did brilliance, so celebrated, seem so fragile? Over the following years, Steinitz embarked on an intellectual journey few recognized and even fewer understood at the time. He began studying chess not as an art of inspiration, but as a science of decision-making. His conclusion was radical. Chess was not a game of improvised attacks and counterattacks. It was a system governed by objective, verifiable, and reproducible principles. And these principles, once understood, granted the disciplined player a structural advantage that improvised genius could not consistently overcome. Steinitz identified the fundamental elements that determined the balance of a position: pawn structure, control of the center, piece activity, king safety, control of key squares, and spatial advantage. Each of these factors could be evaluated, weighed, and manipulated with precision. A player who understood them deeply could construct advantages that were invisible, slow, silent, but inevitable. He called this positional balance. The world would later call it modern chess. Steinitz's theory was not merely new, it was provocative. It challenged the dominant aesthetic and suggested that many of history's most admired attacking games were, in large part, the result of defensive errors rather than attacking genius. To the European chess establishment, this sounded almost heretical. Resistance was immediate and intense. Critics mocked his style. Journalists ridiculed his defensive positions. Opponents he defeated blamed chance or bad luck, refusing to acknowledge the depth of what had occurred on the board. But Steinitz did not retreat. He documented his ideas in articles, chess columns, and later in his seminal book, The Modern Chess Instructor, where he systematized his theory in a form the world could no longer ignore. In 1882, Steinitz moved to the United States, settling in New York and becoming a central figure in the growing American chess scene. America proved fertile ground for his ideas, a young, pragmatic nation that valued systems and results over tradition and style. And it was in this context that the most important confrontation of his life approached. Across the board stood Johannes Zukertort. Zukertort was everything Steinitz seemed not to be: charismatic, elegant, celebrated. His chess was spectacular, filled with dazzling combinations. In 1883, at the London tournament, he achieved one of the most dominant results of his generation. Their rivalry was not merely personal. It was philosophical, a clash between two irreconcilable visions of what chess should be. In 1886, this confrontation became official. The first World Chess Championship match was played across 3 American cities: New York, St. Louis, and New Orleans. 10 wins would determine the champion. Draws did not count. The conditions were demanding. Travel was long and exhausting. The climate in New Orleans was humid and oppressive, and the psychological weight of a title that had never before existed pressed heavily on both players. Zukertort started strongly. In New York, his creativity flourished, and he built a commanding lead. The press declared the match virtually over. Steinitz remained calm. In St. Louis, something changed. Steinitz's positional play began to suffocate Zukertort's initiatives. Each attack was neutralized before it could gain momentum. Every imbalance Zukertort created was exploited with surgical precision. The lead evaporated. In New Orleans, Zukertort's health visibly deteriorated. Heat, accumulated exhaustion, and the psychological strain of seeing a comfortable lead turn into a deficit took their toll. The 20th game was the final chapter. Wilhelm Steinitz won the match by 10 wins to 5, with 5 draws, and was crowned the first officially recognized world chess champion. But the title was merely public confirmation of something Steinitz had long known. In the years that followed, he defended his crown with the same relentlessness. In 1889 and 1892, he defeated Mikhail Chigorin, the brilliant representative of the Russian attacking school. In 1891, he overcame Isidor Gunsberg, reaffirming that his reign was not the result of favorable circumstances, but of a genuinely superior understanding of the game. The end of his reign came in 1894, at the hands of a young German named Emanuel Lasker. Lasker was 25 years old and possessed an extraordinary philosophical and mathematical intellect, capable of absorbing and expanding Steinitz's principles in ways their creator had not anticipated. The match was played across several American cities, and Lasker won convincingly. Steinitz was 58. Age, fragile health, and decades of mental strain had taken their toll. He accepted defeat with dignity, recognizing in the new champion a legitimate intellectual heir. Steinitz's final years were marked by hardship. Without the title, his financial influence declined. He attempted a rematch with Lasker in 1997, already in poor health, and was defeated even more decisively. In 1900, Wilhelm Steinitz died in New York, nearly impoverished. His final years were overshadowed by mental illness, which some attributed to the exhaustion of a life devoted to the most intense thinking a human mind can endure. he was 64 years old. But what he left behind was imperishable. The positional theory Steinitz developed became the foundation upon which all modern chess was built. Every great player who followed, Lasker, Capablanca, Alekhine, Botvinnik, Fischer, Kasparov, carried, consciously or not, the principles forged by the man born in the Prague ghetto. Steinitz proved that chess was not a gift reserved for inspired geniuses, but a discipline accessible to those willing to understand it deeply. He transformed a game into a science, and in doing so, he forever changed how humanity thinks about intelligence, strategy, and patience. Wilhelm Steinitz, the first world champion, the father of modern chess, the man who taught the world to think before acting.